Now, I had no problem with what Freddie Gibbs said. I honestly didn't even think it was that big of a deal. I think that if you're a rapper, you should think that you're better than everybody else. But what was kind of annoying about all of this wasn't Freddie Gibbs at all. It was kind of the reaction that happened towards it. And it really backs up with this one argument that I have when it comes to underground legends being held to a completely different standard than mainstream legends. But I'll get to that towards the end. So the article actually starts off by complimenting Doom heavily, and I honestly wouldn't have a problem with this at all. I think this is a very good approach. I don't really think this guy's attacking Doom in any way. He's just kind of going at him with a comparison. But the problem that I have with this opening is kind of the fact that the only album that he talks about is Madvillainy. And this kind of brings into what I was speaking of earlier. And it's the fact that when it comes to going at someone like Doom, you don't really need to say much to show why it is that Doom isn't quote unquote better than another rapper. And it's because it's so well known why Doom isn't liked by some people. You know, his delivery is very monotone. His flow is kind of hard to get used to. And I feel like with all the arguments that he presents, it kind of shows that the dude, and I'm not sure if this is true, but it sounds like the dude has only listened to Madvillainy. And I feel like that's one of the problems that we have with underground legends. When you want to critique them, I feel like since underground legends usually have such a unique and unorthodox style to their music, the dislike that someone could have towards them, it's much more understood than if you hate someone like Jay-Z, for example. I feel like when you want to go at someone like Jay-Z, you have to thoroughly listen to his discography and have well thought out arguments, because it's a lot more rare to find someone that doesn't really like Jay-Z opposed to Doom. You can't really hide behind the fact that, well, Jay-Z's style is just too weird and too inaccessible. It's a much more traditional style, and I feel like an article like this written about an MC like Jay-Z wouldn't receive as much agreement or backing up to, simply because Doom's unorthodox style and delivery makes it more understood why someone wouldn't like him. And because of that fact, it allows for very weak and less detailed arguments to come about simply based on the fact that, well, I kind of get why someone wouldn't like Doom. And I think that's very much shown throughout this article. So after complimenting Madvillainy, he actually makes a statement that Madvillainy is not quite as affecting as anything Freddie has done. Now, this isn't saying that Madvillainy is better than anything Freddie has done or just more enjoyable of a listen. This is very specifically saying affecting. That's a very specific word. And in this context, affecting would have to mean more impactful, more influential, more of a release that affected the game in any way, shape, or form. And to say that Madvillainy is not quite as affecting as anything Freddie has done is just an absurd statement. Not only is it easily debunkable to say that Madvillainy is way more affecting than Freddie's earlier mixtapes, which don't get nearly as much attention as Madvillainy does, I would argue that nothing Freddie has done or ever will make will be nearly as influential as Madvillainy. At this point, his Pinata era, Pinata and Bandana, is probably regarded as his most cutting edge sound and probably the sound that will go down as classic for Freddie. And to me, Doom has made music with Madlib himself that's just way more cutting edge and way more profound. What Doom and Madlib did with Madvillainy completely changed the way that people in the underground made songs. They broke rules to song structures, and pretty much every underground rapper with an off-kilter flow just completely looked at that album as a way to construct music, and it opened up this whole realm of risk that even underground dudes could take, just because they saw how Doom and Madlib collaborated and created these very short songs with little tie-in between one another. They were just great, short, to-the-point tracks that really influenced an entire subgenre. And I feel like nothing Freddie will do will ever impact underground hip-hop the way Madvillainy did. Not only in its sound, but also just the way people wrote songs just still to this day reflects what Madlib and Doom does. And I don't think that's something that Freddie will ever experience. So following this, he starts talking about Real, which is one of the best tracks off of Pinata. And he starts mentioning how great of a diss this is towards Jeezy, which I completely agree with. And he starts talking about the grittiness that Freddie has in this track. And while it definitely is gritty, I don't think it's one of Freddie's grittiest tracks. I feel like he has a much harsher and more grimy flow in different songs, but you know, it's still pretty gritty and real. And he goes on to say this is a masterful, provocative rap performance, one that Doom cannot do. It isn't the fact that Doom can't rap, it's that he doesn't have nearly the grittiness and the gruff to execute something quite as menacing as this song. Now, basing this off the fact that he only is talking about Madvillainy throughout this entire article, this is another statement that kind of shows people that maybe haven't dug that deep into Doom's discography. And honestly, you don't even have to dig that deep into it. Entire albums like Born Like This show the grittiness and the very menacing approach that Doom has towards certain tracks. I mean, just listen to a track like Rap Ambush. Later on towards Doom's career, his voice just got heavier and rougher, and then added this sort of edge that his music has compared to his earlier sound, and it really kind of pushed Doom to a higher level. He was doing certain stuff towards the end of last decade that he really couldn't do in the beginning just because his voice didn't sound as heavy and as menacing. I really feel like Born Like This is some of the darkest stuff that he's ever made, and tracks like Rap Ambush and Gazillion Ear, his his flow just sounded a lot rougher and honestly way more rough and gritty than what Freddie did in Real. I wouldn't necessarily have such a problem with an argument like this, but when you're only covering Madvillainy, his most famous project, and then covering one little feature that he had on an Open Mike Eagle track, it kind of seems that some of these arguments could be deconstructed simply by bringing up albums that just aren't mentioned here. It's kind of hard to say that Doom doesn't have a grittiness side to his music or a grimy flow if you listen to LPs like Born Like This or many of the tracks on the Victor Vaughn persona. He later goes on to say that Freddie has a distinct advantage over Doom because he can rap over trap beats and more traditional Madlib beats. Now, he says this is a technical advantage over Doom, and if you're trying to argue that Freddie's better than Doom, I don't think that going on a technical route is probably the best way to go. I feel like I would understand an argument for Freddie being better than Doom if it was more based on his delivery and more the way he covers subject matter more than the technicality aspect of it. But to say that Freddie has an advantage because he can rap over trap beats and Madlib beats, I mean, Doom perfected rapping over Madlib beats and also has a wide array of different types of beats that he raps over. I mean, when you hear tracks like No Snakes Alive and Accordion and One Beer, like there's a whole array of different types of beats that Doom raps over that isn't really defined by either traditional Madlib beats. And while I do think that it is very impressive that Freddie can rap over trap beats and then just go on a much more subtle approach with Madlib beats, I think is very impressive. And it's something that is pretty unique to Freddie. I don't really think that Freddie outshines Doom when it comes to rapping over different types of beats. And a big reason for this is because Doom's flow is so off-kilter and at times so off-beat that it allows for him to rap over beats that don't even need that much drums, don't even need that many snares, and that's something that I feel like a lot of rappers need to do in order to rap on beat and rap well. They need those snares, they need those drums. But I mean, look at a track like That's That. Not only Freddie, hardly anyone would be able to rap over a beat like that. So when it comes to rapping over different types of beats, I feel like that's something that, again, Doom just heavily excels Freddie in. Now, he later goes on to say that Flat Tummy Tea is a much more creatively rapped song than anything Doom has done. And again, I don't know if this is recency bias, even though Flat Tummy Tea has a crazy beat that Freddie just murdered and then has a beat switch midway through it that completely changes the way that Freddie flows. Incredibly impressive performance, but more creative than anything Doom has done. I don't really know about that because Doom literally created the off-kilter flow, which literally influenced hundreds and hundreds of rappers, and you're still seeing a huge rise of rappers that are influenced by Doom. So again, I don't know if the creative route is also a route that you can say Freddie is better than Doom in. When you single-handedly make offbeat rapping sound extremely well and extremely acceptable, I don't really know how much more creative than that you can get. And on top of that, Doom is very unique. It's not like he just created something and then just stuck with that. He literally came up in rap making Zulu Nation type music, and I've always said that he literally could have just stayed on that Zulu Nation type music path and made an incredible career, but he completely changed his character and his flow and his persona and created offbeat rap music that sounded incredible. I don't really know how much more impressive and creative than that you can get, and I don't think something like Flat Tummy Tea oversteps that, like not even close. So he finishes up the article by saying that there's things that Gibbs can do that Doom just can't, which again I agree with, but that's mainly because they're just two completely different rappers, which is a case that happens a lot when you compare Doom to anyone really. And he throws in one last argument by saying that Gibbs can make a diss track that is way more replayable than Doom. And sure, that might be true, but to me, that's not really the point of a diss track, so I don't know how strong this holds. And that's really all he says throughout this article. So again, I don't really have a problem with someone saying that they prefer Freddie over Doom, but if you're looking at who is a better rapper and a more objective look towards it by actually studying the technicality of each structure of rap, I don't really feel like there's much of an argument. And I feel like with such weak arguments like this, where barely any of Doom's music is covered, it really kind of shows that when it comes to underground legends that are understood to have an unorthodox style, an approach to music that isn't as accessible or easy on the ears as maybe a mainstream legend, it really shows that based simply off the fact that it's much more understood why someone wouldn't like them, it builds a lot of the argument, and there's not really a lot of substance as to comparing why someone like Gibbs might be better than Doom. I'm really open to the idea of someone trying to explain why Gibbs might be better than someone like Doom, but just because underground legends have such an unorthodox and such a weird way of approaching music, that shouldn't be adequate amount of an argument to say, well, he's better than someone else. I feel like when we're discussing who is the best rapper, it has to be a much more objective approach and a much more technical approach to how we see each category of rap. And when you do that and you compare Gibbs and Doom, I think there's just really no argument. Doom is just overall the better rapper. But that's just my opinion on it. Let me know who you think is better, Gibbs or Doom, and let me know why. And thank you for watching. I'll be with y'all very soon. Please like, please subscribe, please share, and peace.